פוריחת עודנו אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. So this coming Sunday is the yortzeit of our unforgettable and beloved Rosh Hashiva, Reb Dov Tzvi ben Reb Chaim. And for years I used to come to the yeshiva, and many times the yeshiva used to sit right here. As probably some of the older Talmidim remember. Do we still have Talmidim that were here when the yeshiva was here? But all the yeshivas remember, and it meant so much to me just to come into the Beis Medrash and see his Seva Ponim Yofes and Ha'oras Ponim, and he was such a very special Talmid Chochem. I had the schus of knowing Reb Chaim very well, because for many years, once a year I spent a weekend of Arbotzes Toid in Antwerp. And I used to arrive Wednesday night or Thursday till Sunday and give 25 shiurim in all the shuls and all the yeshivas. And the highlight of my yearly visit was visiting with Hagon Ha'adi Reb Chaim Kreiswirt. And very special memories. And Reb Dov, our Rosh Hashiva, the Meyaseh, the founder of this yeshiva, was the Musdiuknoi Shel Aviv. And I know B'Mesiras Nefesh he established the yeshiva, and he had so much nachas from the yeshiva to see the wonderful Talmidim growing and learning. So the title we learned today is Le'ilui Nishmosoi of Reb Dov Tzvi ben Reb Chaim. She'enuach b'shalom ha'mishkove, should be a Melech Yoshar for all the Talmidim of the yeshiva. And the topic we will be discussing today is V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho, and I think that Reb Dov was a symbol, a paragon of Ha'oras Ponim and Ahavas Reim, and besides the fact that he was a tremendous Talmid Chochem, his midas were so very special. V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho ani Hashem, and everybody remembers what Rebbe Kiva teaches us, V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho, ze klal godol b'toiro. So Rebbe Kiva teaches us that V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho is not just one out of Taryag, but it's one of the fundamentals. And whenever I quote Rebbe Kiva, ze klal godol b'toiro, I must emphasize, because some people have a mistake, Rebbe Kiva doesn't say ze HaKlal HaGodol b'Torah, but ze Klal Godol b'Torah. Because there are many amongst us that say, you know, I'm not so frum, you know, Shabbos, I try to be okay, you know, sometimes I daven, sometimes I don't, but V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho. V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho is not the most important mitzvah. And if we have to choose between V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho and V'yohavtu es Hashem Elokecho, I think that V'yohavtu es Hashem Elokecho comes before V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho. And I think Unochi Hashem Elokecho comes before any other mitzvah. Unochi Hashem Elokecho comes before any other mitzvah. However, V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho is extremely important. That is what we learn from Rebbe Kiva. And the Ramban Parshas Yisro says, Kodesh Baruch Hu gave Shnei Luchos HaBris. Why two and not one? There could be one Luach with all the Aseres HaDibros on it. The reason there are two is because Luach number one is Bein Adam L'Mokoim. U'noich Hashem Elokecho, lo yeh loch Elohim acherim, lo yisa'aseh lecho pesel v'kol temuno, zocher Hashem Shav Zakatche. Luach number two is about Bein Adam L'Chaveroi. And the Yerushalmi in Masechet Shkolim says that the two lochos were exactly the same. Same size, same weight, same texture. And that is because it comes to emphasize same importance. So the shleimus of a yid is only in the combination of Ben Adam L'Mokem and Ben Adam L'Chaveroi. V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho ze klal godol b'Torah. Is this a mitzvah shebeleiv or a mitzvah shebemaisa? Is it all about the way you feel? And just as V'yohavtu es Hashem Elokecho, V'yohavtu l'reachu k'moicho, Or does this mitzvah require a code of conduct? Does this mitzvah demand and determine the way you act, interact, react to other people, with other people? So what are the two most important targums ala Torah? Who knows? What are the two most important targums? Onkelos is number one, definitely. And we have Targum Yonison. Onkelos, Targum on the Pasuk, we have to lira'ach kemוך, u'terachem yos chavrech kavosech. Literal translation. Instead of 3 words, 4 words. U'terachem yos chavrech kavosech. Targum Yonison, surprisingly, quotes Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid. Who remembers where that sentence comes from? Hillel HaZoken. To whom did he say that? What? A ger or a goy comes and he says, Gayareini, I want you convert, I want you to be Megayami. Al-Manashe Telam Deni, Kol HaTorah Kula Regalachas. And Hillel says, Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid. Who was the greatest disciple, the greatest Talmud of Hillel HaZoken? Who remembers? Yeah. Where is that? Sukkah. Great. Sukkah Daf Chof Ches. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Yonis ben Azil and Targum quotes his great Rebbe Hillel HaZoken. However, Hillel doesn't deal with V'ahavta lira'ach kemוך. But if we put together Hillel and Rebbe Kiva, and the ger wants to know Kol HaTorah Kula Regalachas, and Hillel says, Ma dalach sani, Targum Yonis ben Azil, the Talmud of Hillel says, that's pshat, v'ahavta lira'ach kemוך. And why did Hillel choose that teaching? Because klal godel b'Torah. So coming back to the comment I said before, I think Hillel tells him, Ben odam lechaveroi, this is the greatest klal. Ben odam lemokoim, no, I can't put it into one sentence. Idach pirusha. Idach means the other leg. You want one leg, but a person has 2 legs. And we got 2 luchos. So leg number 1, Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid. Leg number 2, learn Torah. Zil gemoya. If you learn Torah, you will understand Choyves Odom B'Yaloma, you will understand how to serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So Yonis ben Azil on the Pasuk V'ahavta lira'ach kemוך quotes Hillel HaZoken, Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid. So Targum Yonis, we learned that this is not only about your feelings and your emotions and the way you feel towards other people, but the way you act. Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid. The Rambam, 3 different sources explains this pasuk. Sefer HaMitzvahs, mitzvahs that say Reish Vav, Hilchas Deis, Perek Vav Halacha Gimel, Hilchas Ovel, Perek Yud Dalet Halacha Aleph. And in all 3 sources that Rambam says, we are supposed to love every other Jew the way we love ourselves. And that means Gemilas Chesed Begufay, Achnos Esorchem, Biker Choylem, Levoyes Ameis, Lesameach Osam Vekala, Kol ma she'ato roitze sheyasu acherem lecho, asei ato la'acherem. And that's the same teaching as Hillel HaZoken, but for some reason Hillel HaZoken gives us this idea in a negative form. What you hate, don't do to others. And the Rambam gives us the same idea, the same thought, in a positive context. What you would like others to do for you, you do for others. Positive and not negative. And the Marsho in Shabbos Taf Lamed Aleph actually asked this question, why does Hillel tell the ger an idea in a negative way, Ma dalach sani lechavrach lo ta'avid, and why not positive? Do to others what you would like others to do for you. So the Marsho says, no, we can't expect a person to give others whatever he would want for himself, because chayechu kodem l'chai chavecho. And to me, that's a shtickle pele. Chayecho kodman achai chavecho. Does that contradict ואהבת לרעך כמוך? לכן חייך קודם לחייך is a very limited and specific halacha regarding pikuach nefesh. Because the life of a person is not his. Your life is not your possession. And it is not yours to give away. You could give away your money, you could give away your house, but you can't give away your life. Bal kochacho atochai. Our lives are a pekodon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, and we need to give it back. And we need to watch over our neshama. And only HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides when is the time to give back that pekodon. It is a trust that HaKadosh Baruch Hu entrusted to us. So Chayecha Koidman is not a reshus, it's a chiyuv. So why does that contradict V'yahavto l'reach u'kamecho? I would choose another pasuk, and that's in Bava Metzia Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. And the Mishnah says in Bava Metzia Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, Aveidasoi v'avedas ovev aveidasoi kodemes. So if I have a mitzvah v'shavas aveda, but I also lost something, and I'm looking for my horse, and I find another horse, am I mechuyev to engage in a shavas aveda and neglect my own aveda I'm looking for? And the Mishnah says, no, you come first. And if you're working and you're going to lose money because you need to give back an aveda, you don't need to give back an aveda because your money comes before another person's money. This is not about life, it's about money. So if the Marsha has a problem with a positive context of V'yahavto l'reach kamocho, it shouldn't be Bava Metzia Samach Beis Chayecho Kodman. It should be Bava Metzia Lamed Aleph. And we learn from another pasuk, Efes ki yeh b'chu evyoin. That's the pasuk from which we learn Avedosoi Kodemes Lavedas Chaveroi. So maybe when the Marsha, and even before the Marsha, that Ramban on the spot in our pasuk, maybe when they quote Chayecho Kodman, they don't necessarily mean Rabbi Kiva's Chayecho Kodman. They mean the fundamental idea that a person's own self comes before others. And that's the problem with Kamoicha. But I do want to make a comment. Bov Metzia Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Aveidasoi v'avedas ovev aveidasoi kedemes. Rav Yehuda Omer Rav is the one that teaches us. How do we know this halacha? Efes ki yeh b'chu evyon. And the same Rav Yehuda Omer Rav goes on and he says, but if that is the way you live your life, eino nifta min ha'olam ad sheyizdakek. And Rashi explains, by fundamental halacha, you come before others. But a person that lives his life and always puts himself before others will totally lack gemilas chasodim. And it's not the right way to live. And if that is your creed, and that is the way you live, at the end of the day, you're going to become poor and desperate, and you're going to be samach al shulchan acherim. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. Rav Yehuda says, this is a din d'oraisa. You are allowed to put yourself before others. But that is not the way Rabbi Sol Salanta lived. It's not the way Reb Zusha Manipoli lived. It's not the right way for us to live. Try to put others before yourself, even though you're not mechuyev. But it is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects from you. So coming back to V'yahavto l'reach kamocho, the Mashal says, we can't expect a person to do to others everything he would do for himself, but at least don't harm other people. Don't pain other people. So the Mashal is the greatest commentator on Gemara. Rarely does he quote Rishonim or Poiskim, but the Rambam does put it in a positive context, and the Rambam in 3 different sources says, V'yahavto l'reach kamocho means, yes, whatever you do for yourself, you do for others. Ibidi d'Italia, in my opinion, there's no machlokes at all. Positive and negative are the same and 2 sides of the same coin, and I see no reason to restrict ואהבת לרעך כמוך only in the negative context and not a positive one. Just as ואהבת לרעך כמוך requires, don't hurt other people. It also requires make other people happy, because that is what you expect other people to do for you. So why does Hillel say, Madalach Sani? Well, for the time being, the person is a goy. How much could you expect from a goy? So he says, at least, don't kill, don't steal, don't hurt other people, don't damage what is not yours. After he's become a Jew, then we'll go further. Then he'll plan to teach him, it's not only don't hurt other people, you need to make other people happy. You need to be a goy chasodim. So anyway, Hillel was the all-embracing one. And Rashi struggles, and all the other Rishonim in Shabbos Lamed Aleph. The Gemoni of Omes Memvov says, before we're Makabel Ager, we need to teach him miktsas mitzvos kalois or miktsas mitzvos chamuros. And there's a list what we need to tell a ger. And we learn it from Rus and Naomi. So how does Hillel say one thing? Then come, be one of us. So Rashi says, Hillel had a feeling that this is a good guy, and he was confident, I will teach him and he will be a great tzaddik. So what we learn from Rashi is, Hillel just gives him a little taste, the minimum, and he wants to be makar of him. And Hillel was afraid, I don't want to scare him away. If I'm going to tell him you need to do for others whatever you want others to do for you, maybe he'll run away. So Hillel says something that everybody could understand. But I don't think there's a machlokes between Yonis and Ben Uziel and the Rambam. This Mag was a contemporary of the Rambam. Sefer Mitzvahs Godel, Mitzvahs Seites, also quotes Hillel HaZoken, Madalach Sani. Would we say there's a machlokes Rambam and Smag? No. To me, it's a milsa de pshita. It's the same. What's the difference between positive and negative? Hillel used the negative form. Yonasan ben Aziel quotes him. So does the Chinuch, Reish Mem Gimel, Yereim, Reish Chov Daled, Smag Mitzvahs Seites. The Rambam puts it in a positive context, but it's the same. Shnei Tzdodim shel oisoi hamadebeya. What else is included in V'ahavtu l'reachu kamoicho? So I'm going to give you a little test. Who remembers V'ahavtu l'reachu kamoicho Masechet Kedushin? Does anybody remember V'ahavtu l'reachu kamoicho Masechet Kedushin? I'm sure you learned that sugya. What are we learning now in yeshiva? Sukkah. Do you remember the first Mishnah Perik Beis the Kedushin? Wish Makadosh Boya B'Shlucha. Wish Miskadesh Boya B'Shlucha. Hashta B'Shlucha Makadosh Boya Boya. What does the Gemara say? Oh, Salo the Mashiach Kadesh Isha Chiyareno. And why is that? You're going to marry a woman and you didn't even see her, and maybe you might not like her. Could happen. She won't have appeal to you. If it is gonna be Einov, and that's why Chazal say you cannot get engaged to a girl unless you see her. First of all, for young American boys, this seems to be an interesting halacha to you, right? There would be a havamina. I heard there's a great girl, the best girl in her class. She has tremendous Yiras Shamayim. She davens an hour and a half every morning. She does a lot of chesed. She volunteers, to help the elderly. And, I don't really have time to go over, but I send a shliach, and do kiddushin. The Gemara says, no, you can't do that. And why not? Because we expect you to love your wife, and you need at least to see her before you get engaged. And the Gemara says, why? V'ahavtu l'reachu kamoicha. Who remembers V'ahavtu l'reachu kamoicha Masechet Nedorim? I'm not sure everybody learned Nedorim Daf Samachay. Nedorim Samachay, we deal with a Pesach Charota. Person makes a neder, He could come before a chochem or before a beis din, and he needs to express regret and convince the beis din that he really regrets it, and then beis din is matir neder. So the Mishnah says, if a person made a neder, heder acherem menachosov, and he told another person, I ask you to have any benefit of any of my possessions. So beis din tells him, were you aware that by making this neder, you're over on ואהבת לרעך כמוך? Did you know that? And now that we tell you, you're over on ואהבת לרעך כמוך, do you regret that neder? And he says, oh, if I would know that it's an issa d'oraisa, of course I wouldn't make it. And that is a Pesach, we could be matir neder. So that's another source of ואהבת לרעך כמוך. And this is a chiddush. I'm not causing him pain. I'm not stealing. I'm not damaging his possessions. I'm not mechuyev to give him. But making a neder to aser him, to have any benefit from me, that goes against ואהבת לרעך כמוך, because you wouldn't like any other person to do that to you. So you can't do that to others. So there are many sugyas in Shas in which we see so many different things are all included in ואהבת לרעך כמוך. Fascinating tshuva in Maharsham. Who was the Maharsham? Anybody know? Who was the Maharsham? So he doesn't have Svarim on Masechtas Shas, but he was the greatest posek in his era, going back more than 150 years. Was the Rav in Brajan. Did anybody hear of a tzaddik named Reb Sholem Shvadron? Yeah? Was he a Rishon or an Achron? What? Famous Maggid. Probably most people know about him from Reb Pesach Kron, my dear friend. So Reb Sholem Shvadron was a grandson of the Maharsham. The Maharsham's name was Shvadron, and Reb Sholem Shvadron was named after the Maharsham. And he was the greatest posek of his time in Galicia and Brajan. The Aderes. Who was the Aderes? Who was the Aderes? And what's the abbreviation of Aderes? Eliyahu, David, Rabinovich, Teomim. He was a great gadol. And his story is a story about greatness and a sad story. Rabbi Shmuel Salant was the Rav in Yerushalayim. And when he became 90, the community in Yerushalayim, the leaders of the community, wanted some young Rav to step in, to have some shimish and be together with Rabbi Shmuel Salant. And when Rabbi Shmuel Salant's time will come, he was 90 years old, he should take over the position being Rav in Yerushalayim. And they brought the Aderes. The Aderes was a great Ilui. He wrote more than 100 Svarim. I think only one was printed during his lifetime. And his Svarim are still coming out from Kisvei Yad. He was one of the Rabbanim in Panovich and Lita, and they brought him to Yerushalayim. Obviously, he took his job seriously, because before he comes to Yerushalayim, he turns to the Maharsham, the greatest posek of his time, and he asks a shaila, is a Rav human? That's not the way he phrased this question. But is a Rav entitled to private time? Or is it his duty to be available 24 hours a day? Is a Rav entitled to say, I have public time and I have private time? I want to learn, spend time with my family. Obviously, I need to sleep, because Rabbanim belong to humankind. And they're mammals. They need to sleep. So the Aderes asked the Masham a very simple question. Is it shaykh that I close the door of my home? And now is the time I don't answer. And the Masham responds, Chelik Beisim and Reish Yud, and he says, well, Rav, just like any other person, you are entitled to have private time, and you should have time, which is Kabbalat Kahal. You see people. However, The Masham writes, I, personally, am always available. And he quotes a frightening medrash, Asora haruge malchus. Kishenigzero agzera, and the verdict was passed that they will all be killed by the Romans. And they were sitting in the dungeon and making a cheshbon nefesh. And each of them discussed, why is this our fate? And Rabbi Shimon Kohen Gadol says, a woman once knocked on my door to ask a shaila, and I did not respond immediately. And maybe that is why this is my einish, this is my punishment. So the Masham says, so I always respond. And then the Masham writes, ואהבת לרעך כמוך. Nobody would like to make an effort to leave his home, walk over to another person's home, knock on the door, and then have the door closed in his face. It's a very unpleasant experience. So ואהבת לרעך כמוך. So the Masham quotes the same pasuk and the same idea. Whatever you would not like others to do to you, you never do to others. I'm not a great Rav like the Marsham or the Aderes, but I also think that a Rav needs to be available. And yesterday night, you have a Shiur Thursday night. As everybody knows, he's there every week. And I just jumped home for a minute and I needed to leave my home. And there's a couple standing outside my door. And I say, are you waiting for me? They say, yes. Where are you from? From Bnei Brak. And I asked them, why do you come without an appointment? You know, I need to leave my house. And what would you do if I wouldn't be home at all? They said, we took a chance. So what do? You tell them, go home. Spend some time with them. So it was late for my next appointment, but you never close a door when people need you, because you're a Rav. And it's your duty to serve. And you need to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you could serve, because there's no greater schus than to serve Banav Shel Elokeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kindalach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's children. So we spoke about ואהבת לרעך כמוך, and this is such an important topic every day and all day, but even more so בימי הספירה. ימי הספירה originally were days of great simcha. The Ramban writes, Ramban al Torah, that the days from Pesach ad Atzeres are like the days mechag ad Atzeres. And just like the days between Chag, Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeres Chol HaMoed, Yemei Sfira originally were days of Gewaldige Simcha. But that's a Simcha Shenefach Liyagoin, with the tragedy of 24,000 Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva Shemesu ben Pesach Latzeres, Mishum Shaloi Nahagu Kovoid Zeh B'Zeh. And everybody asks, why such a terrible decree, such a terrible punishment? Is that a Chiyuv Kores? Or Misa B'dei Shamayim? An entire generation of Talmidei Chachamim perished? And why? They weren't Noya Kavod Zeh B'Zeh. Is that one of the most horrible Avedas? And I think maybe it is because they were Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva. Because to be a Talmid of Adam Gadol is not only a privilege, it's not only a schus, it's a tremendous responsibility. So my great Rebbe, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, used to say, and I heard this from him many times, and he told a story. One of my earliest recollections, he said, I was sitting in my father's lap, and the father of the Kloisenberger Rebbe was the Rudnik Rav, and he was a grandson of the Divrei Chaim. And my father was crying, and as a little boy, he asked him, Abba, Tati, why are you crying? And he says, I'm mekane you, I envy you. I was perplexed. And he said, Father, you envy me, you're a great Rebbe, you have a lot of Hasidim, I'm a little boy, I envy you. And my father responded and he said, I envy you because you never saw the Divrei Chaim. And I was even more baffled. And I asked him, Tata, once again, I should envy you because you had the schus of being mishamash at Divrei Chaim, the tzanz Harav. And my father said, Zalman Leib, you never saw the Divrei Chaim, so after 120, what could they expect of you? But I will be asked, you are mishamash at Divrei Chaim, and this is who you are? What did you learn from the Divrei Chaim? And my father was crying. So I feel those Talmidim were asked from the heavens by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are you Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva? Where were you when Rebbe Kiva said, Yerushalmi nedoram daf lamed, ואהבת לרעך כמוך זה כלל בתורה? And did you ever hear Rebbe Kiva in Perek Gimel Masechet Avos, Chavav Adam shenivro b'tzelem Elokim? Chibi Yeseder Naidas Leila Adam shenivro b'tzelem Elokim? And where exactly were you when Rebbe Kiva responded to Shemen Hu Amsoini, and he said, Eis Hashem Elokecho Tiro LeRabos Talmidei Chachamim? You claim to be the Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva, and you learned nothing from him. What exactly did you learn from your great Rebbe, Rebbe Kiva? And that is why they perished. Because they were Talmidim of Rebbe Kiva. And the Minchas Rosh and Sichos, I made a fascinating comment. So the story of this tragedy is told in Yevamos Daf Samach Beis. Yud Beis 1000 זוגויס תלמידים היו לרבי עקיבא, וכולם עשו בין פסח לעצרת שלא ינהגו כבוד זה בזה. והיו עולם שמם, and the world was barren, עד שבא רבי עקיבא אצל רבותינו שבדורים, ושנו להם. ומהם יצאו תורה. 24,000 תלמידים, we know nothing about them. We don't even know who they were. 5 Talmidim. And those 5 Talmidim are Kol HaTorah Kula. So who remembers who were those 5 Talmidim? Reb Meir bar Anas, Reb Yehuda bar Iloi, Reb Yossi ben Chalafta, Reb Shimon bar Yochai, Reb Elazar ben Shemua. 90% of Mishnayos are these 5 Talmidim. Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, Reb Yossi, Reb Meir, and Reb Elazar. Stam Reb Elazar is Reb Elazar ben Shemua. And it's an Eden Pevov, the Gemara says, Stam Mishnah Reb Meir, Stam Brais Reb Yehuda, Sefro Sefri is Reb Shimon, Reb Nechemia, and in Koheles Rabbo, Perikei, Reb Nechemia is also on the list of Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim. Mishnah Braisa, Sefru Sefri, that's Kol HaTorah Kulo. And Bavli Yerushalmi, a commentary. So why would those Talmidim Zaycha? Hidbonanti b'divrei Chazal, and I saw that those 5 Talmidim, each of them was a paragon in Ahavas Reim and Kvod Chaverim. Reb Meir says in Medrash, Kol ha'mavorech es Yisrael kilu mavorech es hashchina. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mekabel pnei chaveru ki mekabel pnei hashchina." Those are the Talmidim, but that is the echo of Rebbe Kiva, Chovev Odom shenivro b'tzelem Elokim. And that is why mavorech es Yisrael, mavorech es hashchina. Mekabel pnei chaveru ki mekabel pnei hashchina. Who is the one that says, Noyach leila odem sheyapel asatzma lekiv shenaweish va'al yalbem pnei chaveroi berabim? Who remembers? Who is the Mora Deshmaitzer? Reb Shimon bar Yochai in Brochas Mem Gimel. Does that teach us something about Kvod Chaverim? And who said, Yodeya ani ba'atzmi she'eini koyin? Im yoimru l'chavere alei leduchan o yisi oila, miyomai lo yavarti al divrei chaverai. Who said that? Who? Is that a guess? Because we don't have many left. That's Reb Yossi ben Chalafta in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches. And that was the easy one. Who said, Kvoit chavechu k'moira rabcha, ve'la'olim yeh kvoit talmidcha chovev olecha. Who's left? Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, Mesechet Oris. Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim, the last Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva, they learned from Rabbi Kiva. They were his real Talmidim. Not only Lamdes, but Toras Chaim, V'Ahavas Chesed. They learned from Rabbi Kiva. That's why they were Zeicha. Kol HaTorah Kula that we learn is the Torah of Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim, the later Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva, because they were mechabed one another. So it's almost like Ba'omer. And the Shulchan Aruch writes, Tov Tzadik Gimel, Lag Ba'omer noegim k'tzas simcha, mepnei she'omrim she'posko ha'magefa. Interesting glossation. People say, Poska ha'magefa. And I guess, why? So the Lev Eliyahu, Rabbi Eliyahu Lapian quotes Rabbi Sol Salanter. There's a kesher between Mem Ches Dvorim Shatoyre Niknes Bohem and Mem Tes Yemei Asfira. Chidush Harim says the same. And the Chidush Harim demanded from his Chasidim, and Rabbi Sol from his Talmidim, to be practical. Every day Miyemei Asfira, you work on one of the Kinyonei Torah, and you go from one step to another. So if you take out a Mishnayos and you count, Memchas Vorim Shatoyre Niknes Behem, number 32 is Oyev Esabriyos. Libi Yoimeli. What Rabbi Suan Salanter knew, and what the Chidush Harim knew, probably Rabbi Kiva knew as well. And probably Rabbi Kiva taught his Talmidim. Every day you work on one of the Kinyonei Torah. And in day 32, Lamed Beis La'oima, Lamed Beis is Leiv, Ki Ish Echod U'Beleiv Echod. Day 32, they worked on Oyeves Abrios. Day 33, Lag Ba'oima, the plague was over. The Pasko Lamas. And that is why Lag Ba'oima Noyagin K'tzas Simcha. ואהבת לרעך כמוך זה קהל גדול בתורה. We need to support each other, love each other, and not only in the abstract way. It's very easy for a person to say, you know, I love everybody. You need to prove it. It needs to be obvious. And whatever you would like others to do for you, go out of your way and do to others. That is the mitzvah of ואהבת לרעך כמוך. יהי רצון שיהיה חלקנו עמהם. Have a gewaldiges Zman. It's a pleasure to see you all back. So last time I met some of the Talmidim was in Poland. It was an amazing experience. It was an uplifting experience for me. And I think for everyone that was with us. And I also enjoyed to see our Talmidim not in Beis HaMedrash. Sometimes boys look different out of yeshiva and in the yeshiva. When I see you up here, you always, all of you look beautiful. But I was very spoiled to see you in Poland. The singing, the slavis, the dveikas, and the fact that most of the boys were up 6:30 in the morning by davening, which was somewhat of a surprise to me. We never had everybody in the morning, but the great majority of boys, after walking 10 kilometers every day, and I don't know why you thought that an old man could have the same schedule as young 20-year-old boys. But Baruch Hashem was tremendous Yata D'Shmaya, and it was an uplifting experience. And I hope it is something that will stay with us for all our lives. So you should have a gehoibtes Zman should be a wonderful aliyah in Torah, and we should always be zeicha. Ish esre'ehu yazero, la'ochev yoim hachazak, and lahagdil Torah u'la'adira. Good Shabbos.